for all life. Yet, our forests are in trouble. Guardians of the Forest is a transformational online course taught by 40 practitioners from over 30 nations around the world. Through 7 bioregionally focused modules, we'll travel to remote forest locations from Borneo to Brazil, Siberia to Liberia, where traditional knowledge and practices are kept intact, as well as to cities, universities, and NGOs to learn from the latest science and environmental research. We'll explore spiritual, ecological, cultural, and legal aspects of forest guardianship. We'll learn secrets of the trees and encounter ancient traditions of forest wisdom that can enrich human life in times of ecological and personal crisis. Register at www.forestguardians.co. Hi everyone, welcome to this evening's live stream. The video you just watched is a short introduction to a course that's coming up starting this Monday, and we'd love people to join. If you would like a further concession or a bursary place, everyone's welcome, so don't let finances prevent you from joining us on this journey of learning with 40 forest guardians from around the world. And my name is Christabel Reed, and I'm one of the co-founders of Advaya, which is a global platform for education and that explores the intersections between ecology, economy, spirituality, well-being, and community. And we passionately believe in the power of people to create cultures that thrive, that are in harmony with nature and the real well-being of people. And today I'm joined by some of my favorite organizations and individuals who are committed to aligning nature and restoring the earth through forest care. Joining us is Ndobev, who is an earth jurisprudence practitioner with the Gaia Foundation and who's worked for over 2 decades within the Congo Basin, providing support to communities and donor foundations on issues related to forestry, livelihoods, indigenous peoples, and climate change, amongst others. We're also joined by Robert Somerville, who is the author of the new book, Barn Club, A Tale of Forgotten Elm Trees, Traditional Craft and Community Spirit, where you can find that book at chelseagreen.com. Martina Fondi, who is the head of forestry at Treedom, a really exciting organization that is planting trees across the world and working with smallholder farmers. I'm really excited to learn more about that. And last but not least, Ashleigh Brown, who is part of Ecosystem Restoration Camps, which is an incredible organization that's doing really, really, really exciting work, and that has inspired us a lot at Gaia. So, Ashleigh, I wonder if we could start off with me directing a question to you. And I'd love to learn about the work of Ecosystem Restoration Camps, with a particular focus on the work that you're doing with restoring degraded land, forests, and rivers. Could you tell us why this work is so important and how Ecosystem Restoration Camps is kind of rising to this epic mission?
Sure. Hello, everyone. So ecosystem restoration is one of the most powerful solutions to the combined and escalating crises that humanity is facing right now, such as climate change, biodiversity loss, desertification, food insecurity, the drought flood cycle. And I mean, all of these things are not separate. They're all different aspects of the same problem, basically, which is that we in the Western world and a lot of the world have forgotten or are forgetting the importance and value and aliveness of nature and the way that ecosystems work to produce us with everything that we need to live. So one of the reasons why ecosystem restoration is so powerful is because it is a very affordable and quite straightforward way to reverse the crises that I just mentioned. And what ecosystem restoration camps is doing is providing everyday people with the opportunity to enact this solution, which is in the past has been only really available to NGO kind of experts and consultants and, you know, larger organizations like the World Bank and people with PhDs. And there are millions of people out there who are really concerned about climate change, and they want to do something about ecosystem collapse, and they just don't know where to go or what to do. And we offer those people an opportunity to enact this desire. We have 38 camp partners who are all local projects around the world that have been initiated by local people and are run by local people. And these camp partners are restoring the land around them. Both the ecosystems that are being used to grow food, so like agroecology and agroecosystems, and then the natural ecosystems that surround them. And those span the entire spectrum of different types of ecosystems, so forests, temperate and tropical. We don't actually have any boreal forest restoration camps yet, but I'm sure that will come. There are camps restoring mangrove forests. There's a new camp coming on board soon that restores corals, grasslands. Yeah, the whole spectrum really. And they are making ecosystem restoration available both to the local people around them and to the wider global community. And they're all interacting with one another. So they're learning and sharing with each other, which is what makes this so cool, I think, is that it's super bottom up and grassroots, and it's growing really, really quickly. So yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so amazing, and I love what you say about kind of, you know, there's millions of people all around the world who are really, really concerned about climate change, the ecological crisis, and what ecosystem restoration camps is doing is providing education and the practical skills for people to kind of like not only channel and transform that like you know existential fear of climate change, but also to start to build systems which are aligned with nature and which are aligned with communities, and kind of bringing people back to the land is just a really really special and incredible organization. And this kind of, as well as working with local organizations and yeah, just with the local is something that ties, I think, all the speakers in today's live stream together as well. And I think when we're, you know, in the mainstream media, there's such an emphasis on these kind of globalized or like technological solutions to climate change, when actually all the solutions that we need are already within us and around us. And it's just stop destroying the ecosystems and start regenerating the ecosystems through skills which are actually accessible to everyone. It's, you know, so long as that knowledge can be shared again. So for me, it's such a positive vision for the future. And weirdly, something that hadn't even occurred to me until about a year ago, perhaps even when I came across the ecosystem restoration camps. And I've been very engaged with kind of climate change and cultural narratives and things for a really long time. And so, yeah, it's really exciting. And thanks a lot, Ashleigh. I'm going to come back to you after asking some of the other speakers some questions, but thank you so much for being here. So Samuel, you there? So Samuel's been in a storm and lost his internet connection. So thank you so much for running to find new internet connection. How are you, Samuel?
Great.
Great. So Samuel, you've been working in the Congo Basin, providing support to communities and on issues related to forestry and indigenous peoples. Could you tell us about the work that you're engaged in with a particular focus on forests and indigenous peoples? Like, what's the context that you're working in? Why are you engaged in this? That's happening.
Great. Thank you very much for having me on this panel. I really like to. Perhaps before coming to your questions, I would like to give you just small context about the Congo Basin, not a very long one. I know most of the listeners or our viewers know the region very well. The Congo Basin, which is the second largest intact forest, tropical rainforest in the world, just after the Amazon, is home to so many things: biodiversity, all especially endemic species that are found there. We have the different ape species. We have particular species that are found anywhere. And what is particular about that is it's also home to one of the most peculiar indigenous forest peoples, whom in many books they'll call them pygmies, which is, I don't like to use that word. I like to call them by their tribe's name. So you have the Baka, Bakeni, Bakulaba, Betsan were found in Cameroon, the Babongos, the Baka, the Bayakas, the Bambuti, and a host of other. I mean, they are very particular because these are the first inhabitants of the forest in that area. And talking about the first inhabitants, their whole way of life is completely related to the forest. It's a type of a mutual interaction. Listen to the forest, they hear the forest. Some may want to term it in capitalistic terms that the forest is a pharmacy, it's a supermarket to them, but it's beyond that. You go to the supermarket, to the pharmacy, you just go and take away, but they leave something. They have created their whole way of life of giving back to the forest is like having sacred natural sites where they give spiritual, cultural respect to the gods of that forest. And with colonialization, people came and said, oh no, this forest is very rich. The undersoil has minerals. The trees are good for timber and wood. And we could do so many things, petroleum and the rest. So people were taken away from the forest and were made to live a different type of lifestyle. They were given Western educations and completely cut off from that rich mutual respect with the forest. So part of my work is to help these communities come back to that original way of life that has kept forest standing, that has given them own respect, but also to make their voices to be heard, by the decision makers who have completely stratified forests now into logging concessions, into protected areas. I mean, protected areas are national parks and reserves where they no more have access. These reserves and protected areas are mounted by guards. So the people who had nurtured the forest today don't more have rights to that. So most of my work is helping them to have their voice raised through mapping and advocacy. And in that like way, I also support civil society, NGOs, strategically to how to do this type of work, how to stop, the destruction of forests through large infrastructural investment projects that are going, like huge roads getting into forests, penetrating into the forest, mining activities that are being carried out in the forest. Huge parts of forests are now being converted into oil palm plantations and other commodities. Try to help them better understand, where their money can make more impacts to nature and to communities. I'm so passionate about this, as the Father Thomas Berry said, that the universe of the earth, is not a collection of objects. It's a communion of subjects, and I find myself as that subject, to work and see how we can respect all the different beings, including the forest, including the rivers and the mountains that are found there. I'm so passionate about that.
That's so beautiful. Thank you, Samuel. Can I just clarify that you were saying that part of the problem is the creation of national forests and taking people off the land, or were you saying that was part of the solution?
That was, well, part of the problem is taking people out of, forests that they're supposed to be protecting, or they should be protecting for certain species, not knowing that the people who have been living in the forest have lived in harmony with those species for
years. Yes, exactly. Yeah, thank you. I wanted just to clarify because this is something that I've recently become aware of because of the work of Survival International, who are very, very against the movement to create 30% of the world as a protected area, because what this is doing is then removing indigenous peoples who live in harmony with the land, whilst also perpetuating this idea that humanity is inherently a virus and that they can't live in harmony with the land. And I think this is such a dangerous cultural narrative that we really need to become aware of and understand that actually there are millions of people around the world who live in complete harmony, who understand that we are a communion of subjects, you know, and live in relationship. And that the removal of people in order to create protected areas as though we inherently have to be destructive is a really scary and damaging idea. And linking back to what Ashleigh was saying before with, you know, ecosystem restoration camps, is teaching people who perhaps haven't lived in these indigenous contexts where they are taught land skills and restorative ways to be in relationship, teaching them again how to do that, so we can all, you know, we can all become in some way indigenous to our land. We all have ancestors, you know, in different parts of the world, and I think that's a really important point. So thank you, Samuel. And I wanted to just also note that the great work that you're doing with building or looking after like the culture of these people, because I think forest culture and the culture of the people who live in forest, live in harmony with nature is such an important part of work as well. So thank you very much. Have I been lost or Samuel been lost? Perhaps Martina, you with us?
Yeah.
Hi, Martina.
Hi.
Hi. So you're part of a large, well, it's large because it feels that you're doing kind of a large scale Treedom. I'd love to hear about the work of Treedom. What sounds so cool about Treedom is that you're working with local kind of farmers and smallholders and kind of trying to make social and environmental commitment easy and fun. So I think the idea with Treedom is that you can plant trees, you donate to plant trees, and then you have a photo of the tree and it's geolocated and you can follow its story. And what really appeals to me about this is that I think the more time I spend in this sphere, the slightly more skeptical I get when people can talk about reforestation, because I start to imagine these like terrible monocultures where trees are pulled down and then loads of trees have been planted, and, you know, kind of big airlines feeling like they can get away with all their pollution because they're planting trees and actually they're monocultures. So I'm really interested to hear about you being the head of forestry, and also about how Treedom has been navigating tension and therefore working with smallholder farmers in planting native trees.
Yes, and first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity also to just explain this, because I totally agree with what Ashleigh said, because we are facing a very large problem. We have to approach it on different angles, and we are trying to have an holistic approach. As Treedom, we do not plant monoculture, of course, and our approach is what everyone calls agroforestry. So we decide to plant in agroforestry solution, agroforestry mix, inside the land of the smallholder farmers, with them, working with them in partnership. We have more than 40 projects, more or less, right now, all around the world, in different countries. And the general idea is always the same: find a solution, a sustainable solution for everyone, which is what Samuel was saying also, not just a sustainable solution for the nature, but also a sustainable solution for people who are living over there, who needs help to have an extra income in a balance with nature. What is what I love about agroforestry, as you know, agroforestry is a mix of woody and annual crops, a combination of woody vegetation, usually trees, shrubs, with agricultural crops and animals. And the goal, the idea is to create a balance in which the different elements can work together and can maximizing the benefit for each one. That means that we can have a sustainability, long-term sustainability, not just for the nature, because we are protecting soil, we are regenerating the soil, we are protecting the fertility, but also we are protecting the annual crops or other kind of trees. We are trying to help also with food security. For example, planting different kind of fruit trees that can give fruit all around the year. The farmers can have a benefit for their diet first, of course, but also they can have an extra income selling the fruit in the local markets. So the idea is to create a balance, a very different balance for every single project, because what is needed in Kenya, for example, is not the same that is needed in Nepal or in Honduras. So our mantra, our motto is the right tree for the right place for the right purpose. So as you said, monoculture, especially not native trees, is a very dangerous path. I'm a bit critical sometimes with large-scale reforestation projects. When you heard about billions and billions of trees, could be quite dangerous sometimes. Planting not native trees means that also you are going probably to destroy biodiversity if you're going to plant monoculture, or you are going to introduce species that can be dangerous. For example, for the water's resources. A classical example: eucalyptus, acacias, pines. We are invaded by these species, and we are facing a lot, for example, of water shortage, because these trees will need a lot of water, and maybe they have been planted in a very dry situation. So you really need the right tree for the right place for the right purpose. That's our general goal, our general mantra. And it's so important to have, as Ashleigh said, a direct relationship, and also like someone said, a direct relationship with the local partner, the local community, smallholder farmers, local villages, wherever, to create a project that is shared between the parties. We try always to have a bottom-up approach. We try to understand the needs coming from the partner, coming from the local community, because we cannot just go there and say, okay, you have to plant billion and billion of trees. This is the solution, because we have to find a way to make it sustainable for everyone. I always say that I just not want to save the planet. I want to make this planet a better place for everyone, to make it sustainable for everyone. And it's not just about environment. It's an holistic approach. We need to have it because we are facing many different kind of problems. Ashleigh really said it perfectly at the beginning. We are facing food insecurity. We are facing climate change. We are facing other kind of problems, loss of biodiversity, and everything is connected. So we really need to have this holistic approach and being focused on what is coming from also the ground. So being really connected with the local specific situation. I don't know if I answered your question more or less.
No, Martina, that was fascinating. Thank you so much. And I really delighted to have found out about the work of Treedom and all the care that's going into it, because I often find that with kind of organizations that are working on conservation, that if it feels too simple and easy, then it might not be good, you know. But so when I first saw Treedom, I was like, oh, what, you know, it looks too easy. Like maybe they're doing monocultures as well. And then I looked into it and I asked to see the PDF, and it's been so inspiring to see that you really are getting such an incredible balance and making it really accessible for people as well. So that's really cool. And the word that is my connection okay? Can you hear me okay? I just got told perfectly. It was a bit laggy. Okay, cool. Internet problems all the time in this internet world. But the word that you used is relationship, which I think is a really powerful word and which guides a lot of my understanding and with how I approach kind of environmentalism. It's like, how can we rebuild our relationship with the natural living world of which we are obviously a part, because we are nature itself, you know, when we are nature. But, you know, how can we transform the cultural narratives which have kind of been so embedded into our minds that we suddenly think that we're not nature anymore. We think we're separate to it. We think we're above it. We think we're more conscious than it. We think we don't need it. So rebuilding that kind of relationship, that love for trees as well, you know, falling deeper in love with the natural world, so that it's not even a question as to whether or not we want to take action to preserve. And the other thing you mentioned was about, you know, you don't see it so much about like saving the planet. It's more like creating like better futures. And I think similarly, the idea that we need to save the planet is putting the emphasis in the wrong place. Like the planet's, well, it's not doing great because of human systems, but really we need to kind of save humanity from itself, or if not humanity, save like the culture and these cultural systems and these globalized systems, which are, you know, making economies be completely founded on this idea of infinite growth with finite resources. And it's those things that need to be not saved, but they need to be changed and transformed so that we can stop with the kind of mass destruction of ecosystems and of course our futures. It's really cool to learn more about Treedom. Thank you so much. And someone else who's been working a lot with relationship, I feel, is Robert. Hi, Robert.
Hello, it's nice to be here.
Great. So your work, your book, you work a lot with kind of local traditions and craft, and I'd love to learn a little bit more about that, how you've come into this deep relationship with elm trees and what traditional craft kind of means for you.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, and the others have described the global problems very well and succinctly, but my projects are very local and specific, and I think in the end all the solutions will be specific to the local region, the local woods, the trees, and the culture.
Totally agree.
So I've written a book which has been recently published by Chelsea Green, which has, I don't know if you can see that, Barn Club, and that describes very well the philosophy of approach. And the book really describes the journey of trees from the local woodlands, the elm trees, through to construction of a traditional timber frame barn using hand tools in a way that was done 200 years ago with local volunteers and people just from the village, really. And then to the final day of the raising of the barn, using the muscle power of 46 people who turned up on that day. And it explores, really, for me, every time a tree grows well or a woodland's growing well, it's a bit like a conveyor belt, and at the end of the conveyor belt are trees that are dying or trees that are blown over by storms. And these are the trees that I use and were used a long time in the past, using hand tools to then make into structures, which are incredibly beautiful. And it's a remarkable thing, really. I didn't set out particularly to involve the local community, but more and more people got attracted to joining in. And the significant thing was to use hand tools, because then that's available to everybody. Machine tools need an awful lot of training and health and safety around them, but hand tools are incredibly accessible. So it is about reviving a tradition. And in regards to the woodland, in the UK now, because it's become very advanced, people have lost contact with the knowledge of what individual trees, how they grow, what the timber's like, and what the timber can be used for. 200 years ago, this was common knowledge in any village or rural area. And so the Barn Club, which is the ongoing project of building barns from local timber, from local woods and hedgerows, is making that connection for people, just ordinary people, just like Ashleigh was saying earlier, not experts, not carpenters, not very knowledgeable foresters, but just ordinary people being able to make a link to the trees in their landscapes in a sustainable way and make beautiful things from them. So that's behind me is a part of a frame of another barn that I made, not the one that's described in the book, but it shows very much the kind of construction just using wooden joints and wooden pegs to hold it together to create something quite beautiful. And I think that sense of beauty and that sense of connection with the outside, working outside together, is what drew people to want to be part of it. So it's a kind of accidental social enterprise, I suppose.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Robert, for explaining that. And I think, you know, especially at the moment, as we're kind of, well, not everyone, but many of us have been like launched into this very virtual realm. The need for learning how to do craft, you know, craft with your hands has never been greater. And I think, again, that's all kind of part of rebuilding or deepening this relationship with the natural world and kind of, I think also, you know, being able to engage in something which is creative, where we actually like making something that's beautiful, you know, without causing too much damage at the same time is really powerful. Thank you very much. I'd love to invite all the speakers to come back now onto the screen. And before I ask any more questions, I'd love to invite any of you to either respond or ask someone a question if there's anything that you'd like to find out more about.
Yeah, I would love to ask Martina, how do you go about selecting the farms to work with? How do you find each other?
Well, we work usually with local partners and NGOs, association, foundation, communities, and I would love to talk with you later, maybe, because I think we can work together, but that's another part. And sometimes it's just a network, because we receive a lot of proposal all around the world, and sometimes it's like, well, let's say that the tree planters, even better, the tree growers, as I would prefer to call ourselves, because we try to move from tree planters to tree growers as approach, not just plant trees, but guarantee that the trees are going to grow healthy. But that's another point. We are, let's say, quite famous. I mean, just that it's not a big word, our word. So we receive a lot of proposal. We select all the partners. We visit all the partners. We visit all the projects during the year. And we are in a daily basis contact with them. We check every single photo, every single tree that is, because every single tree for Treedom is going to be geotagged and photographed. So we are going to check every single tree on the other side of the platform, let's say. And so we usually, the selection of a project is like a 12 months process at least. We start with the, of course, trying to understand better the partner, what they want to do, where, who are going to involve, how they're going to manage everything. And I'm talking about logistics, I'm talking about tree nurseries, I'm talking about how they're going to, for example, select the seeds, because the seeds are so important. So collecting the seeds in the forest, for example, is a very good thing that you can do to protect biodiversity, etc. So depending, especially on what we are going to plant, where, how, but every single project has its own tree nursery, at least one, probably more than one, because the trees are going to be produced locally. So we are going to reduce the shock from the transplantation, you know, because it's so important to the logistics when you're talking about this kind of projects is the biggest part probably of a project. So usually the selection is a very long process, at least 12 months. And then we are going to produce during the dry season inside the nursery. So you can plant at the beginning of the rainy season, because of course we do not promote at all artificial irrigation. We want to plant just during the rainy season. So in Cameroon right now, for example, and depending on when and where and how we are going to manage the situation. So I'm just saying that usually I receive at least 5-6 proposals every day, and I have only 40 projects open. So the selection is a very long and strong process. We do not promote big projects. We are talking about small scale projects, about 40,000, 50,000 trees per year, which is a very small scale when you're talking about planting trees. Usually you heard about billions and billions of trees, like we are going to plant 10 billions of trees in 20 hours, in 24 hours, something like that, which is totally crazy. Because who is going to take care of that trees? That's my main issue. My main problem is that I always explain this with a very simple example. If you're going to plant flowers in your garden, or you have just flowers in your balcony, and you don't know how to take care of that, and you do not take care of that, maybe you're just not watering them or removing the weeds, what is going to happen to the flowers? Probably they're going to die, or at least something is going to survive, but a very, very few of them. So it's so important to train the people, to help them to take care of the trees. So not just plant, but grow trees. And do this means also find a way to involve the people, local people, not just going over there like, okay, we're going to plant 1 billion of trees in 24 hours. And then what is going to happen? Maybe you destroy just an ecosystem, you planted trees, and in 2 weeks, we are talking about a desert, more or less. So it's very, very important to do the right thing for the right place and have a bit of strategy, a long-term commitment, long-term project, not just something that is so interesting because we are talking about big numbers. Sorry, I can be a bit passionate about this.
Well, I totally share your passion, Martina. It is very disheartening to see the lack or the kind of like oversimplification of tree planting as a solution, as if it's as simple as just taking it and putting it in the ground and walking away without any ecological understanding of the system and how it all interacts and works together as like a living community. And we've come across so many tree planting partners, like sort of like yourself, people who, you know, get funds to plant trees, but they all want to plant. It's like a race to the bottom in terms of price. And when you're trying to restore a piece of land that's degraded as well, there's so much more that goes into it before a tree will even survive, even if you know, do everything in a regenerative holistic manner, you still need to decompact the soil, you still need to like rebuild the soil biology, all of the stuff that needs to happen first before a tree will even survive, and that could take 2 to 3 years. There's so many costs involved that our projects, you know, some cost €5, €6, dollars per tree, and the tree planting partners that have approached us, they want to give us 20, 30, 40 cents.
Yeah. And
yeah, it's hard.
I'm totally, I totally agree with you. I'm so tired of people who are saying that you can plant trees with 20 cents. It's not true.
No.
It's not true. That's just not true. You're just throwing seeds somewhere. It's not true.
Yeah.
We need so much more resources. And I know perfectly, because I know how much I pay my trees. A couple of years ago, I was talking with a very big organization, not of course saying the name, and it was like, oh, you're so crazy. You're paying so much money for the trees. You can just plant trees with 20 cents. It's not true. That's not true. You need resources, you need a project, you need to work very, let's say, in the long term, in a strategic way. So it's not just about the tree. When I'm saying the tree, I'm saying all the project behind the tree, all the logistics, all the water system, the management of the soil, the tree nursery, the seeds, the training, everything. So it's so much more, let's say, so it's bigger than this. And yeah, I totally agree with you. Much more resource involved, definitely.
Mm-hmm. It's really refreshing to meet you, Martina, and to meet a tree planting partner like yourself that really understands that. Honestly, it's a really breath of fresh air.
Okay, we can talk about it later. I would love to talk about mangrove.
I'd love to talk about it. I just wanted to add, if I can, Christabel, just want to add something about the planting of trees. I think it's a wonderful initiative, but I think the best way of doing that is to revive those cultures that really have tree planting embedded in them. Like where I come from, you know, each time a child is born, a tree is planted at the place. You know, another thing is brought to life, you know, to plant a tree where the placenta of that child is you know, but that type of culture has completely been degraded, and we don't find them anywhere. And that is a part of the work that we are doing to, you know, to help communities remember, you know, those cultural, those community traditional ecological governance systems, like you know, protecting or reviving their traditional sacred natural sites, which have huge useful values. That have been keeping the trees there. You know, there are also like seed banks and other, you know, other type of stuff. I don't know if you have such a criteria or approach in your projects that you form.
Well, we try to, especially about the biodiversity, we try to have this a very flexible approach. Right now, we are currently working in 12 different countries all around the world. So the situation are so, let's say, different, because every single country, every single place has its own different need and situation. So, for example, we are working also here. We are Italians, and I'm Italian. We are working here in Italy also a bit with few projects, and we are working with a seed bank here in Italy, for example. But we are working in Madagascar with a local solution for biodiversity, for different kind of dalbergias who are very endangered over there. So the idea is we are planting like 300 different species more or less right now. The idea is to try to maintain and protect biodiversity and include new species and work with local different organizations, Could be university somewhere, could be local partner, could be, again, local foundation, local government. But our first idea is protect biodiversity. Again, right tree, right place, right purpose is my mantra, with sustainability. These are the two phrases that I use the most during my day. And flexibility, meaning that we are trying to have a different approach depending on what is needed in the different place.
Thank you so much. That was really fascinating to hear that. I would like, we're up against our time, and to finish, although I would love to hear you speak more about tree planting, because I find it so interesting. It's not a conversation I've been able to be party to before, but we need to finish. So I would love to just ask each of you to share a message for anyone who's listening about, you know, what is the message that you would like to share in order to kind of tell people about how they can actively participate in restoring the earth, perhaps through forest care or perhaps through another means? Like, what do you feel is one of the missing pieces that is kind of preventing people from really being able to step up to the climate and ecological crisis? Perhaps, Robert, you would like to start us off.
Okay, thank you. I missed most of that because my internet connection dropped. I think in the area where I live in southern England, the most important thing is probably to look after the woodland that's already here, because according to the Woodland Trust, only 7% of our existing woods, which are mixed deciduous woods, small woods in a vast patchwork across the land, only 7% are healthy, and mostly they're in decline. And that's partly, I believe, because the evolution of those woods over the thousands of years has been woods that are productive. They'd be coppices where trees may be felled, but they resprout from the stool, so they don't get replanted. And so I think my message would be, as much as planting trees, we need to, in some countries, some parts of the world, really make efforts to look after the woodlands we've got, or the forests. But certainly where I live, it's not forest, it's woodland, or even hedgerows, because they have been, over the thousands of years, an enormous biodiversity has developed, and we are losing that. And I think part of that is we can sustainably harvest material and learn what those things can be used for, whether it's carving spoons, like my friends do down in Hackney Marshes in London. They go and gather branches and then go home and carve spoons from the certain sorts of trees that are suitable. Or in this instance, from my perspective, using elm or oak or sweet chestnut to build structures that can capture carbon for hundreds of years. And all my structures at the moment, I buy the timber as firewood because it's all going to be burnt otherwise. That's what's happened now. A few trees are used for sawmilling, but very, very few. Whereas, of course, in the past, the culture had evolved, the local traditions, to use everything possible and burn as little as possible because it's so useful. And I think those two things really understand and respect the biodiversity and treasure our woodlands, and also relearn the ways that our forebears used to know how to use the bits of wood in a sustainable way, and that way lock the carbon much longer than just burning it to create electricity.
Amazing, thank you. Treasure our woodlands. I love that, Robert. Thank you very much. And Samuel, could you please share kind of the message that you would like to share with people?
Great, thanks. I think one strong message is that forests are made up of trees, and forests have people who have lived there for several thousands of years. The indigenous peoples, they know the law of the forest. The indigenous people speak with the forest. So we really have to adapt the ways of life of indigenous peoples, you know, which that ways of life which we are already kicking out from because of our Western way of education. We need to come back, and we also need to support indigenous peoples who have lost that knowledge to remember those knowledge systems by supporting sort of dialogues where communities can remember those traditional practices, those traditional knowledge systems, those governance systems that they used to have in keeping protected, sacred natural sites and territories. And finally, we just need to love the forest. As subjects, we just need to go. I have a tree where I just lie on it and dialogue with it at least every day. So we all need to have that connection so that we can stop, especially in this part of the world where I come from, where the forest is seen as a resource, as a commodity. Huge chunks of forest are destroyed in the Democratic Republic of Congo, in the Central African Republic, in the Republic of Congo, in Cameroon where I live, and in the other countries that form this huge block of forest. We really need to support communities and come back to to those indigenous ways that have kept the forest standing for several donkeys. Thank you.
Thank you, Samuel. Thank you. And Ashleigh.
So I feel like the restoration of ecosystems should just become an activity that is woven into the lives of society on all levels. So imagine school field trips to ecosystem restoration camps, summer ecosystem restoration camps for kids that are funded by the state. Brownies, Girl Guides, Scouts have an ecosystem restoration badge that they don on their sash. Companies going to ecosystem restoration camps for team building retreats. There being an ecosystem restoration National Guard sort of service that is again funded by the government. These are all things that I think would make a massive difference. And seeing as the UN has decided to make the next 10 years the UN Decade of Ecosystem Restoration, we are going to see the concept being much more spoken about in the mainstream, which is fantastic. So yeah, just got to keep going. And if anyone wants to go to an ecosystem restoration camp, there are nearly 40 around the world now. So we're hoping that soon there'll be one near you if there isn't one already. So please check out our website. And yeah, there's plenty of ways that you can get involved there.
That's an inspiring vision. I love that so much, Ashleigh. I got goosebumps when you were explaining your vision. And Martina, would you like to finish, please?
Yeah, my first thing is I will suggest my main concern sometimes is that I do not want to tree planting being an alibi for what we are doing in our daily lives. So first, tree planting can distract from greater priorities, because our first priorities should be protect what we have, should be reduce our pollution, reduce our use of fossil fuels, etc. So my first thought is please try to live a more sustainable life. So first of all, protect what you have, what we have. So the woodlands in South England, the forests in Cameroon and everything. And we should reduce our impact. Tree planting can't be an alibi for what we are doing. So it's not the main solution, it's not even the only solution, it's not even the solution. It's just part of the solution. So we should, first of all, protect what we have and restore what we can restore. then tree planting in the right way, with the right project. I always suggest small-scale project, not giant project. With Treedom or with someone else, that's not the point. It's a good way if it's done in a strategic way. So sometimes it's not even the best solution, planting trees. So my general suggestion is, first of all, we should have more information, we should learn, we should study, we should understand how we can live in a balance with our planet in a sustainable way. And of course, it's always a
Oh, Martina, you've dropped out for a second. Can you hear me? No. Oh, what a shame. Okay, well, no, she's not there. Well, the four of you just shared a lot of wisdom in those closing comments, and just to reiterate, that was to treasure your woodlands or your forest or the trees near you, to reconnect with craft, to revitalize forest culture, to fall back in love with forests or a tree if you're not near a forest, to support indigenous communities, and that's a huge, important, huge topic, to make the restoration of ecosystems an embedded part of your life, your culture, your community, your schools, and you can ask for that to be an embedded part of your life. And then to remember that tree planting also isn't an alibi, it's not a plaster, it's part of a holistic approach, of part of the solution. And to remember that local communities are the best place to know how to regenerate their local ecosystems, how to revitalize their own community well-being, and for communities to take the power back into their own hands and build sovereignty, and build connection and natural systems again. So I'd like to thank each of you so much. And Martina, I'm happy you're back. Sorry, we lost just the end there. But it's been such a pleasure and a delight to be able to have this conversation with you all, and it's incredibly inspiring to have a small window into the amazing work that you're all engaged in, and the depth and breadth of that work as well. So thank you so much. And for anyone listening, we do invite you to join the Guardians of the Forest course. We're going to be looking at somatic, as in like bodily, spiritual, legal, practical approaches to forest care. We've gathered 40 different forest guardians from 30 different countries across the world. And then every Wednesday, so on Monday, we have an opening ceremony with Vandana Shiva, and then after that, every Wednesday, there's going to be 2 back-to-back workshops for 16 weeks. And then a dedicated course platform with practices and resources that have been shared by each of the teachers. You can use the code EarthMonth20 to get 20% off. But like always, Advaya events remain open to everyone. And if you would like to request a further concession or a bursary, you can email us or Facebook message us. We're at advaya.co or Instagram, whatever. And just request one of those bursary forms, because we really do believe that this is a course for everyone, if they would like to learn some of the practical ways to engage in traditional forest knowledge. So thank you, everyone, and I hope to see you soon in real life. Thank you. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much. Bye. Bye, Sam.
Trees are the lungs of our earth, and forests are the foundations of all life. Yet, our forests are in trouble. Guardians of the Forest is a transformational online course taught by 40 practitioners from over 30 nations around the world. Through 7 bioregionally focused modules, we'll travel to remote forest locations from Borneo to Brazil, Siberia to Liberia, where traditional knowledge and practices are kept intact. as well as to cities, universities and NGOs to learn from the latest science and environmental research. We'll explore spiritual, ecological, cultural and legal aspects of forest guardianship. We'll learn secrets of the trees and encounter ancient traditions of forest wisdom that can enrich human life in times of ecological and personal crisis. Register at www